this video today, I'd like to talk about a concept that's very familiar for all of us. And in fact, it might be on the minds of most of us during this pandemic. And that's a concept of uncertainty. In my recent work with clients, I've had a lot of discussions around the unknowns. People are genuinely afraid if they're going to lose their jobs. They're worried about them or their family members getting sick. They're not sure how it's going to look when their child goes back to school or daycare. Everyone's wondering about when this COVID vaccine is going to come out. So these are all really valid questions to be wondering about. But the fact that we don't readily have answers to them can create a lot of worry, fear, and anxiety amongst us. So it's no surprise to us, right, that we do not like uncertainty. In fact, what's interesting is that we can tolerate pain a lot better than we can tolerate uncertainty. So I'm sure at some point in your life, you've had a friend or a colleague or family member come and say, I have some good news and bad news. What would you rather know? And what's interesting is that a lot of us might lean towards wanting to know what the bad news is, because it's like we just want that Band-Aid to be ripped off. We'd rather deal with pain than just not know what that bad news might be. So if you think about it, right, all human beings inevitably will go through certain life experiences. For example, our own death, loss of a loved one, difficulties in a job and relationships. So we at some level, consciously or unconsciously, are pretty aware of these things that they will happen. But what we don't know is how they'll turn out or when they will happen. And that's the part where we can end up finding ourselves creating a lot of what-if scenarios that can't necessarily be helpful, and in fact may or may not even come true. So it's really important to recognize that life will throw surprising curveballs at us, and that we will have to deal with the unknowns. And it's really important for us to then increase or build on our tolerance for uncertainty. So I've come up with these 5 R's. These are my 5 strategies that hopefully you can take away, and hopefully it can help you ride through this wave of uncertainty, either during the pandemic or beyond. So my first R is recognize. And that's really about recognizing what's not within our control, accepting that those things are not within our control and letting go. It's also about recognizing our feelings associated with uncertainty. So if you catch yourself in those moments where you're feeling confused, find a way to identify what it is that you're feeling. So maybe you're feeling afraid, maybe you're feeling helpless. So being able to just recognize that I feel afraid, I feel helpless. That in itself can actually calm our brains down, because it gives some name to our experience. So again, recognize what you can't control, let that go, and recognize your feelings associated with uncertain times. My second R is reasonable control. And that's really about focusing on things that you have some level of control. So maybe it is about, controlling your daily routine, controlling your diet, sleep, and exercise. Maybe figuring out a schedule for your kids during summer, especially because that's when they don't have any structure from school. It's also a good time to maybe figure out how much news you want to consume, or how many happy hours you want to do with friends and colleagues. So again, find things that are within your reasonable zone of control. My third R, and I really like this one, it's reflect. Our survival instincts kind of make our brains overestimate threats and underestimate our ability to handle them. But the reality is that human beings are quite resilient. Especially, we are able to adapt and bounce back even in the most adverse situations. So think about the times when you've had some setbacks or disappointments or just difficult situations, and think about how you either overcame those situations or how you even barely maybe tolerated them, because that's really tapping into your resiliency. Being able to tap into those moments can actually reinforce feelings of courage rather than reinforcing feelings of fear. And that also gives you a healthy sense of control over the situation. So definitely take the time to reflect on those moments of resiliency. My fourth R, it's reasonable restraint. So given that everything is so up in the air, there are so many unknowns, it's really important to perhaps take a little bit of caution in making risky decisions. So you may not want to take certain risks that you would under normal circumstances. So for example, maybe be, financially a little bit more conservative. If you have extra cash, maybe put it into your savings, or if you want to donate it to somebody who actually needs it, you can do that. So again, practice caution in a measured way. I heard someone once say, confidence without clarity is a disaster. And that is so true. You definitely do not want to walk into a dark forest and not be prepared. So again, practice reasonable restraint. My last R that I want to share with you, the fifth R, is reimagine. We are living in a new context now, and it's quite likely that our new normal is going to look very different from the one before. So it's a good time to reimagine new possibilities, whether it's in your personal life, professional life, at school, with your friends. Might be a good time to pick up some old pending projects that you've been wanting to do. Might be a good time to, learn a new skill or reinvent your business model. So think about the things that you can do, differently, or be more creative in. So I'll leave you with that last R. And, these are my 5 strategies that hopefully can be in your toolbox, and it can help you ride that wave of uncertainty now or in the future. So I've also created a PDF file that has these, points that I've talked about today. So feel free to download them, use it for yourself, or feel free to share it with anybody who might find it useful. And we also have a comment box on our website. So we'd love to hear your feedback, any comments, or even suggestions for future video clips. And thank you for listening.